Ladies and gentlemen, good day. Hope you are doing well out there. Today I want to share with you a little story, tale, an idea that I've come up with called permission slips. And before I get into my story about permission slips, I want us all to just take a quick trip down memory lane. Think back to when you were a youngster, a little kid, and you had to get permission for something. Maybe it was in school. You had to get your permission slip signed for your class trip by your parents, or to the nurse's office, or to the bathroom, or just for an extracurricular activity by your teacher. Or maybe you were at home and you had to get permission from your parents to go to your friend's house, or to go play on the playground, or just to have an ice cream cone. Think of those times. We all had some time when we had to ask for permission. And before that moment of actually being granted permission, we were a little bit nervous, a little bit unsure. Were we going to get permission? What would that mean? Would we be told no? And then when you got permission, what did that feel like? It was like the shackles were off and I could do that thing that I wanted to do. I could go to that birthday party. I could go on that class trip, and it felt like you were free and you were unleashed. So as you think about that, I want you to think about one other thing. There are things in our lives all the time that we are trying to do, trying to accomplish, or just thinking of and brainstorming. And I want you to think of that thing that you haven't done yet, or you've been thinking about, but there's some kind of resistance. And get that thing top of mind. I'm going to share with you a couple of stories around permission and permission slips that have impacted me recently and caused me to think about permission in a different way. So before I do that, I just want to share with you a definition that I'd come up with around permission. It's the allowance for what you need in a moment without condemnation. Now let me share with you a couple of tales. This past Friday, I have this accountability Zoom call with two of my friends, Victoria and Mark. Inside that call, what do? We share the things we're working on. We listen to each other. We give each other ideas and advice and guidance, and it's an empowering phone call. At some point in the call, Mark was talking about an action he wanted to take, somebody he wanted to call, but you could see he was resistant, a little bit hesitant, didn't know if he should or didn't know if it was a good idea. In that moment, Victoria jumps in and she says, "Mark, I give you permission to make that phone call." And as I was looking at Mark's face, you could see that face of resistance and hesitation turn into a face of relief and a new demeanor where he was like, "You know what? You're right. I should have permission to do that. I'm going to give myself permission and I'm going to take that action." And inside that moment, I saw something powerful and I highlighted it and I said, "You know what? At the end of the phone call, this is what we're going to do," and this is what we did. We went around and we talked and recapped the things that each of us were working on. And then around the circle, we gave each other permission to go out and do those things in a powerful and empowered way. And that was something that we are carrying forward into subsequent calls. The second story that I wanted to share, just to give you a little background on me, one part of me is focused on communication, training, consulting, and coaching. So I work with individuals, I work with corporations on communicating effectively, verbally, and in other means. Another thing I'm passionate about is nutrition, health, and well-being and fitness. So I do my own personal experiments, and recently I've been on this 2-month keto experiment. For those of you who don't know, keto at a very simple level, it means I eat a lot of fats, a lot of proteins, and very limited carbohydrates and sugars. What that does for the body, quite simply, your body doesn't have a lot of sugar and energy, so where does it turn? It turns to your stored fats. And you go into a state of ketosis where your body is now burning the fats that it has stored up inside of it. So for 2 months, I've eliminated a lot of those sweet treats, the things that I love, whether it's ice cream or pizza or bagels with cream cheese and all that fun stuff. And so I was reading this book. It's called The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. Those of you might be familiar with The 4-Hour Workweek. Anyway, Tim Ferriss, both books, great books. But he wrote about nutrition inside of this 4-Hour Body book. And inside the nutrition section, I came across this thing called a cheat day. For those of you who don't know what a cheat day is, it's basically a day that you incorporate into a diet where you can eat whatever the heck you want. All those guilty pleasures, those sugary treats, you're allowed to eat them. As I read that, not only were you allowed to eat them, but it was actually beneficial for your body in the long run to give it a little bit of up and down, a little shock to the system. So I said, you know what? This Saturday is going to be a cheat day. And I got excited. I think this is one of the most looked forward to Saturdays of my life. Saturday comes around, and I prepared this. We thought about this with my girlfriend. We wake up and we go to the kitchen, make pancakes, we make bacon, make eggs, and I smother all of it with syrup. I stuff my face, and I'm having the time of my life, and it tasted so good. Later on that afternoon, one of my guilty pleasures is pizza. And so I went to Joe's Pizza just off of Times Square, and I ordered myself not just a slice of pizza, a full pizza pie. 5 slices later, stomach stuffed and a big smile on my face. Never enjoyed pizza that much in my life. A couple of glasses of wine into the evening, I said, you know what? I'm craving a little Mickey D's. McDonald's. So ordered some of my favorites, 2 cheeseburgers, fries, 6 chicken nuggets with sweet and sour sauce, and an ice cold Coca-Cola Classic. Stuffed my face, and that was one of the best tasting ice cold Coca-Colas I've ever tasted. Imagine 2 months of deprivation into this moment of incredible euphoria. So why do I share that? Well, I've had these guilty treats in the past. I've had these cheat snacks in the past, but I've never felt good about them. There was something about cheat day. I'd given myself permission inside of this 24-hour period to do whatever I want and feel okay and actually feel good about it. The guilt that was usually there, that second guessing that was usually there was gone. So I found another insight into this world of permission and giving yourself a permission slip. So as I'm going to conclude this, I've actually asked a lot of people, what is something they'd love to be given permission for? And I want to share with you some feedback I got from my girlfriend about this and the 3 things that she cited, and it took it to another level, and it's powerful. So I want to share with you those 3 things. And then what we're going to do is each think about that thing that we want permission for. So what did she say to me? She said, number 1, she wanted to have permission to say what's on my mind without fear of being judged, condemned, or rejected. What would that be like? No fear of being judged, condemned, or rejected. Number 2, to be myself, even when I'm in one of my least flattering moments. Not to change who we are in those tough times, but to actually just step into our true selves and give him permission for that. Powerful. And number 3, to do what I want inside of a moment and be met with reciprocation and love. No matter what you do, to be met with love. Powerful, powerful stuff. So as we're going to wrap this up, what I'm going to ask you, the audience, to do is to think of that one thing I asked you to think about at the beginning. And maybe now, as we've been talking, you've been thinking about some other things. Doesn't matter. Change it up. Choose one. But what we're going to do collectively, there's a lot of power in collective consciousness, is we're not only going to grant ourselves permission, we're going to grant each other permission. So on the count of 3, we're going to do 2 things. First, we're going to say, I give me permission, and I give you permission. On the count of 3, think of that thing that you want to be given permission for. 1, 2, 3. I give me permission, and I give you permission. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you permission to do that thing, to feel empowered about it, and to really embrace and enjoy it. Thank you. Have a great day.